everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Chris. Today we're going to be winter sowing some seeds. This is a method that I haven't used before specifically. I have planted seeds outside in the early spring, very early spring or late winter before, but never specifically using this winter sowing method. I'm going to do a couple of different types of winter sowing. In this video, I'm just going to be using milk jugs. So these are milk jugs I just collected from people in my area, just in my community. I put an ask out and asked if people had any empty milk jugs to let me know and I'd come pick them up. I was able to collect a total of 25, which was amazing. So I'm going to be starting 25 different milk jugs, and all of them are going to have a different type of seed in them. Now for this video, this is the only method I'm going to do, but I'm going to try a couple of other methods of winter sowing, and I think I'm just going to do little shorts for those instead of a longer videos. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to see how else I'm going to winter sow some seeds. Maybe it'll give you some ideas if you want to try this out for yourself. Winter sowing is basically exactly what it sounds like. You are sowing seeds during the winter or very early spring before your first frost date, and you're setting them outside to allow them to naturally germinate at the right time depending on the weather in your area. Unlike starting seeds indoors, like we have back here, all of these seeds that I've started indoors, those seeds are started in kind of an artificial environment sort of way. So because my house is warmer and I can control the amount of light they get, I can start seeds earlier than if I were just to sow them outside and let them come up when the ambient temperature of the air and the soil outside it reaches the point that the seeds need in order to germinate and grow successfully. In winter sowing, we're going to use the natural environment to germinate the seeds, and we're going to create little greenhouses out of these plastic jugs. It's also going to create an environment that protects the seedlings. So instead of just sowing them straight in your bed where they're exposed to whatever they're exposed to in your region, they're a little bit more protected in these. So it gives them a little bit of a boost. I've also heard that winter sowing can actually create stronger seedlings. Now, I don't know that that's true because I've never tried this, but I have heard other people say that when comparing their seedlings that they winter sown versus ones that they started inside and transplanted, that the winter sown seeds sometimes start a little bit smaller, but they usually catch up pretty quick and end up doing better than the transplanted seedlings. So I'm really interested to see if that is the case for these. There are some of these seeds that I'm starting both ways. Like I have some broccoli seeds that I started in soil blocks, and I'm going to start some in one of these milk jugs as well to see how they do. I'm also going to start some spinach and lettuce in these, and I'm going to also start some seeds indoors as well, but I'm not going to start the indoor ones for a couple of weeks because I don't want them to get too big before I'm able to transplant them outside. It's just not necessary since they're pretty cold hardy. I don't need to give them a really big head start indoors to get them to a point where I can harvest them when they're outside. So a couple of things to keep in mind for winter sowing. When you start your seeds and set them outdoors, you want to be careful if you have temperatures that are highly fluctuating. So if you have 30-degree days one day and maybe 60-degree days the next, that can prematurely trigger seeds to germinate, because once that temperature goes up, they're thinking, oh, this is perfect, this is the time. And then if you have another dip down below freezing and your seedlings aren't able to handle that, then you could lose them. So be cautious of that, and if that does happen and you have seedlings that are sprouted that are not going to be able to handle a big dip in temperature, make sure you cover them or in some way further protect them than just what this is going to provide, just so you don't lose your seedlings. Regardless of what container you use, you need airflow. So for these milk jugs, I'm gonna leave the caps off. It doesn't matter whether it's raining or snowing or whatever, I'm gonna leave the cap off so that these seeds and the soil that I'm gonna put in here has airflow. That's really important for the success of your plants and your seeds and to avoid any kind of fungal problems in your soil. You also want good drainage. So I'm gonna put holes in the bottom of all of these containers to provide adequate drainage for the water. So we don't want to flood our seedlings and drown them out either. When you're picking soil to use for this, it's best to use a container mix for something like this because these are considered containers and we want them to be able to have the proper drainage. And garden soil or soil from your yard just isn't going to have the proper drainage for the seedlings that are in these containers. You also want to make sure that you have soil that has nutrients in it. So use a good potting mix. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the same potting mix that I used to start all of these seedlings in, because I know that it has the nutrients that these seedlings are going to need as soon as they emerge from the seed. To get this ready to plant in, I'm going to start by using a knife. I'm going to cut almost all the way around the jug. I'm going to leave a little bit intact so it flips kind of like a lid. So it's cut almost all the way, but I have this little piece intact, so it flips. To put my holes at the bottom of this, I'm going to use a glue gun. I took the glue out, so I'm just going to use the heat of the tip to melt through the plastic and create holes. You could use a nail. Pretty much anything that will just puncture through the plastic will work just fine for this. So we have some holes. Now for drainage. I have some soil here that I've already wet. There's a nice bit of soil in here. And since I have spinach on top, I'm going to go ahead and make this American spinach. Now when you plant seeds in these, it's easy to just sprinkle them in, but they're going to sprout and they're going to start growing in here, and you want to make sure that when that happens that they have enough room to grow. If you put them in here too densely, they're not going to have the room to grow. They're also going to really compete with each other for the nutrients that are in the soil. We don't want them to kind of go into battle with each other over the nutrients. So we're going to be mindful of that as we put these seeds in here. I'm going to plant just every couple inches. So that's 12 seeds inside this container. I'm going to take a little bit more soil and just put it on top. It's time to close this one up. In order to close it up, we're going to use some trusty duct tape. one of the most important things is labeling. So this was American spinach. And I'm gonna put the date on it, just so I know when I started them, so I don't forget. This one's all ready to go. Some of the other things I'm gonna be trying with this are a couple different types of cilantro, broccoli, comfrey, sage, hyssop, Holi basil, which is not the same thing as the culinary basil. And try some peas, some lettuce and arugula, some cabbage. This is green cabbage. Dill, parsley, some marigolds, some catnip, a couple types of kale, some purslane, some feverfew, this poppy, and that's it. I can put a complete list of these flowers, herbs, and vegetables in the description so you can see exactly which ones I'm starting. So I have all 25 milk jugs filled with soil and with seeds now. Here they are. I'm gonna leave them right here in this raised bed, at least until I go to plant this next month. That way they're out of the way. They're not going to be bothered by my dogs or anyone else. They're not going to be able to be blown over by the wind should it get really windy, like it typically does get a little bit windy in the spring around here. We'll see what happens. One thing I did forget to mention is that supposedly with winter sowing, the seed germination rate is supposed to be higher. We'll see if that looks to be the case. If I'm kind of hoping that maybe not all of the seeds germinate, or maybe, you know, 75%ish I would be really happy with, because if most of these seeds germinate, I have no idea what I'm going to do with them. So we'll see. I hope you enjoyed following along as I start another new adventure in gardening this year, and I hope you stick around to see how everything goes. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to hit the like button so YouTube knows to show this video to other people. And I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you next time.